U.S. President Joe Biden is set to meet Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Monday to try to get closer to a deal on the debt ceiling, following what McCarthy described as a productive phone call. Biden told reporters upon his return to the White House from Japan that the call went well, and McCarthy struck a more positive tone on the issue on Sunday, despite no sign of a final agreement being hammered out.
What I'm looking at are where our differences are and how could we solve those. And I felt that part was productive. But look, there's no agreement. We're still apart. The agreement would be, let's get our teams back together so everybody clearly understands what we're talking about, what they're talking about.
Talks had stalled as both sides fell back to calling the other side's position extremist. Biden, who was in Hiroshima for the Group of Seven summit, said before the call that Republicans' demands were unacceptable. Democrats have been pushing to hold spending steady at this year's levels, while Republicans want to return to 2022 levels. Last month, the Republican-led House passed legislation that would cut government spending by 8%. Democrats have said that would mean average cuts of 22% to education and law enforcement, a figure top Republicans haven't disputed. In any case, they're on a tight schedule to strike a deal before June, with risk of default already putting markets on edge.
Having spoken to Leader Schumer, I was giving him 7 days. He told me he doesn't really probably need that much time. We need to post a bill to whatever we agree to. It takes some time to write it. We have to have it 3 days, 72 hours, before we could vote on it. Then it would go to the Senate.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said June 1st was a hard deadline for raising the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling, lest the country risk triggering a default, sparking chaos in financial markets and spiking interest rates.
Together with the entire G7, we have Ukraine's back, and I promise we're not going anywhere. Today I'm announcing the next tranche of U.S. security assistance to Ukraine, a package that includes more ammunition, artillery, armored vehicles to bolster Ukraine's battlefield abilities.
Mr. President, President Zelenskyy, is Bakhmut still in Ukraine's hands? The Russians say they've taken Bakhmut.
I think no, but you have to understand that there is nothing. They destroyed everything. There are no buildings. It's a pity, it's tragedy, but for today, Bakhmut is only in our hearts. There is nothing on this place. So, just ground and a lot of dead Russians.
At least a dozen people were killed and an unspecified number were left injured after a stampede at a soccer stadium in El Salvador over the weekend. Alianza FC and Club Deportivo FAS were playing the second leg of their playoff quarterfinal game at the Cuscatlán stadium in the capital, San Salvador, when play was suspended after a stampede broke out in the general section. Cuscatlán can hold more than 44,000 fans, making it one of the largest stadiums in Central America. Government Minister Juan Carlos Biragain said the stadium turned into a battlefield. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele said the National Civil Police and the Attorney General's office would conduct a thorough investigation into the events at the stadium, saying on Twitter that, quote, everyone will be investigated. Teams, managers, stadium, box office, league, federation, etc. Whoever the culprits are, they will not go unpunished. The Salvadoran Football Federation has suspended the tournament.
Greece's ruling New Democracy Party claimed victory in the country's parliamentary election on Sunday, but fell just short of an absolute majority to form a government on its own. In Athens, Greek Prime Minister and New Democracy leader Kyriakos Mitsotakis called the vote decisive. The result was a stunning boost for Mitsotakis, who is seeking a second term and has had to contend with a wiretapping scandal, a cost of living crisis, and a deadly rail crash in February that triggered public outrage. Sunday's vote was a blow to opposition leader Alexis Tsipras, the country's former prime minister, who called the result, quote, particularly negative for his Syriza party and said he contacted Mitsotakis to congratulate him on his victory. On Monday, Greece's president will give the three main parties 3 days each to form a coalition government. If they all fail, the president will appoint a caretaker government to prepare new elections about a month later.